There's Spun's video. Yeah. Due in the morning. Okay. Anyway, so she apparently did a couple of these videos. I didn't know she did any videos. But anyway, so I just found it because I saw her. She made a comment, another one of her snarky comments on Anna Kontavad's video. So apparently she embraces those videos. But anyway, so the first one, she's doing this hate crime thing. And she's, the word evil is, if you use the word evil, you're religious. If you use the metaphor of David and Goliath, you're religious. So apparently they really must rename the atom, right? Because that's a religious metaphor. And so obviously physicists are religious. You know, it's just this same old word play. Just play games with these words like this means something. And you know, the videos are such a lie. You know, she's sitting here saying Ephilism is a hate crime, and making the accusation that Ephilists hate living things, and that's not the argument at all. It's the very fact that we value living things and their sentience and their welfare that we think something needs to be done, because you're squandering and wasting too much of their suffering to play your badminton or whatever gets you off. That your ambitions are trivial and silly, and if it was in your power, like an Adolf Hitler, if somebody gave you power, what would you do with it? You would impose suffering on trillions of sentient organisms so you could what? Go bowling? What? Make inarticulate videos? Strangle language to pieces? She even goes through a whole spiel about, you know, she uses the line mental midgets, intellectual midgets, and then defends, you know, any offense to midgets, and so wastes 3 minutes talking about how she doesn't mean to offend midgets, and that other people have offended midgets already, so it's okay if she offends midgets. And you know, you're just like, what is this? I mean, can't you come up with some other insult? Call me a jerk? I'll call you a horse's ass, can't I? Yeah, I'll call you a horse's ass. How's that? Or you have an ass like a horse, something like that. Face like a horse? I don't know. Yeah, because horses can't be offended. They don't speak English. Haha. So yeah, maybe you should insult things that can't speak English, or your native tongue. But anyway, just pathetic. So anyway, let's just forget about that video. It's a waste of time. So then her second video is, why do we not miss the Martians? Question mark. So she's playing with my point that if there was something precious and it was absent, or if there was some way to generate it and it didn't exist and you could make it, probably not the best. The point is we could automatically recognize the urgency if something is being harmed, or is at risk, or in harm's way, at jeopardy. It's automatic. You can't miss it. It's glaring. But the value is not so glaring. It's certainly not glaring in the fact that we don't sit there and imagine what could be and then lament its non-existence. Sort of like you could see a laughing baby and you could say, well, wouldn't it be nice to have laughing baby everywhere? Just laughing babies floating about. But realistic, you know, if there was laughing baby, there'd also be shitting baby. There'd be shit all over the place. And there'd be crying baby and stinky baby. All the other crap that goes with baby. And so you'd kind of know, yeah, maybe not. So the whole point of that thought experiment, this idea of not missing something, is just acknowledging, just recognizing that there is this psychological phenomenon that if harm is taken away, you appreciate its absence. If value is taken away, if, you know, positive is missing, you don't really miss it. It's just not the same kind of gravity. So I guess I could re-analogize it by saying, if I had a person on a gurney and they're being tortured, and then I bargained with you, to stop the torture. You had to eliminate from the existence of the human consciousness baseball. And then I did football, and I did soccer. I mean, how much of what you value in this world would you actually torture someone to have? How much of our experience means much more than just crude gratifications? So anyway, yeah, so that's up, and then she's always trying to imply that there's something dogmatic or religious in perceiving evolution as a process where you start with something that's just replicating for no good reason, just because the chemistry made it possible, and that it replicates on an island planet, so to speak, and that it does so now parasitically or cannibalistically. And to acknowledge that truth, to state that truth, is somehow a religious dogma. Because obviously these are not flattering things. And obviously when something's not a good thing, when it's not a good mechanism, it's not an efficient or clean or precise mechanism, when you can see the obvious flaws in it, the obvious irregularities, the obvious dents, the obvious brokenness, it's only rational to look at it and say, what do we do about that? It's just a rational thing to do. And she doesn't think that's rational. We should not be judgmental of the God nature. And it is her God, quite obviously. She has dogmatically accepted that nature must be as it is. It is not for us to judge. It is not for us to augment or to manipulate to better function or better purpose or better efficiency, because it's her God. So clearly she's the one with the religion, the dogma of nature knows best. And that's clearly what she's saying. Clearly she's saying nature is somehow in a category that is beyond our judgment, that we're not allowed. We can say somebody's farts smell, but we can't say that nature's cruel. It's just stupid. So I will play this video. It's the shortest of the bunch, which is good, and it's so overtly a lie, right on the title. Will my consciousness be repeated exactly in another, I imagine the future or something, another person in the future? I have never, ever made the claim that I am going to be exactly replicated in the future. I've made exactly the opposite contextual clarification. Every time I talk about this subject, I always point out that I am not saying exact. So it's just another lie. I mean, that's all these people have. They have to distort and pervert. I had a crank caller guy, a nice enough guy, today call me. And, he said, oh, I saw a couple of your videos, and, I think you're pretty cool, and blah, 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 and now here's my life story, and I'm pretty cool, and I'm not cool just because of some things that happen, but, yeah, you'd really like me because I was really cool, or I could have been really cool. Well, anyway, he's just doing that bullshit. And in between there, he says something like, equating ephilism with suicide. And again, it's like, what are you, the subject isn't suicide, it's procreation, idiot. Not having babies. It's not about killing yourself or not having fun or blowing your brains out or, I don't know, pulling all your hair out. Or it's not about nothing. No, there's nothing. It's about having fucking babies. It's about playing goddamn God and thinking you know what's best for them. Yeah, it's that obnoxious behavior that we're critiquing and saying don't do that. Because the harm you cause is real. And if you really think about it, you wouldn't want somebody to do it to you. You wouldn't want somebody else rolling the dice. If you were going to have dice rolled, you'd want to be rolling them. Right? Right. I mean, you wouldn't put your house on the line and have those dice in somebody else's hands. You just goddamn wouldn't. So anyway, we'll play this video. It will be horrible, so prepare yourself. Do 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 do. Free video music. Free video.
Hello. Imagine somebody tells you, my consciousness will be repeated exactly as it is, as I have it now, in some person in the future.
Yeah, well, if I imagine that, I'd say, gee, that sounds crazy. That's the... I don't know, it would take like a bazillion permutations to get an exact copy, I think. Like a zillion. Or more, you know.
Even if that person doesn't have the same name. Then the first...
Oh, so they're exactly like me, except they don't have exactly the same name. Okay, but that's the only difference. Okay.
thing you will say to this conversation partner is, well, if that person has a different name, then his or her consciousness, depending on the sex of your conversation partner, will not be the same.
Look, you know, this isn't that complicated, okay? You think you're 1 in 7 billion, and you think you're so distinct and unique, and that everything you feel is just yours privately. You're the only one who has any feelings or any thoughts. That's just crap. Alright, I have a huge ego, but I don't think I'm 1 in a million. I really don't. I think there's lots of people who have thought what I've thought or felt what I've felt, and maybe it's not, you know, 99%, but maybe it's 82%, or maybe it's 78%, but whatever it is, it's a big giant percent of the same kind of experiences, generally speaking, and the same kind of, you know, perception of those experiences. They're sitting there in their chair now, and they're saying, gee, you know, my life is just kind of this drib-drabby bullshit, you know, got to do these tasks and these chores. I don't even feel good, and I take a nap, and I do this, and and they're just kind of mushing through the bullshit, and they go outside and they hear the birds, and they think about reptiles, and they think about dinosaurs, and they look at things and they say, this is really ugly, and there's a cat's got a broken leg, and and they go, So it's just outrageous for somebody to say, yeah, we fit into categories. Frankly, I can cut you all into 2 categories. Cool people and assholes. Guess what category you're in?
That person has a different name.
Pause. She has to reboot her computer. I don't even know what this video style is. I'm going to talk to you from 3 rooms away. Where that goes and all that.
Then, if your conversation partner tells you, well, these are details, but my consciousness, the way...
Yeah, it really doesn't matter whether the bitch has got a little funky green scarf or a pink scarf or what. Who cares? It's just not it's not a really important detail.
I feel will be repeated. He or she doesn't say may. Will be repeated in a...
Whatever. You don't think like the chimpanzees look at us and say, man, they all look alike. At the zoo, you think they're like saying, oh yeah, that one's a special, unique human being. Oh, that's a special, unique human being. No, they're just going, asshole, 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 asshole. Ooh, cool guy. Asshole, 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 asshole. That's all they're doing. Okay? It's a cliche, but you all look alike to me. It's a reality, okay? You only see distinction because you got like an obsessive disorder. So you see silly things like, oh, that person has bigger ears than me, or oh, that person has a better looking, oh, that person's vagina is less skanky than mine. Yeah, so you just keep playing that game. But it's a stupid little game you're playing. You're not all that fucking special.
Another person in the future.
Seen one horse's ass, you've seen them all.
Then you must say the experiences you go through in life are what makes you you. It is not possible that any person in the future will have the same experiences.
Yeah, and again, no one's making that argument, so this is just such a lie. You can't quote me making the argument that it's the same everything. No, just that it's substantially similar. And that's all that matters, is substantially similar. I mean, this isn't that complicated. It's just like imagining somebody being like me, finding out, they have a brain tumor. And I can imagine that. I can imagine what they're experiencing, what they go through, because we have common grounding. We have a common, we have common sensibilities within ranges. There's people who like tacos, and there's people who like sushi, and there's people who like potato chips. They're cool people.
That you have had in your life until now. I have to open a bracket here on a topic which deserves a separate video entirely, and that is the topic of hard determinism. I have made a video on this topic earlier, link in the description, where I showed why, even with the deterministic action of the classical mechanical forces and the interaction of particles in the universe, because of nonlinear algorithms.
Nonlinear algorithms. Alright, so there we go. Nonlinear algorithms mean you will do something against your better judgment. You will do something not consistent with your life experience because of nonlinear algorithms. And therefore you're free. That makes you free. When you don't act logically, sensibly, and consistently, you are free to be an asshole. Huh? Yeah, get real. None of this shit is free. Nothing in this picture is free. None of it. Not one little tiny little photon in here is free. You silly person, you. I didn't know she was going to get silly. Right in the middle of a silly video, she was decided to, hey, wait, hey, time out, I have to get even sillier. Nonlinear algorithms make us free to be wrong and stupid and to behave inconsistent with our sensible education. No, they don't. I mean, really.
And other mathematics of nature discovered by complexity theory.
Oh, yes, complexity theory. Yes, invented by Mr. Daffy, complexity duck.
Which is from a modern science founded by the Brussels School of Scientists.
Oh, the Brussels School of Scientists. There you go. Brussels Sproutius tells us the truth. I don't think so. I think it's a crock of shit. I don't think you're interpreting it correctly. I think that's it.
Most of them are mathematicians. Google it.
Alright, yeah, mathematicians will prove that the universe isn't physics and isn't deterministic. Oh, I see. No, I don't see. No, I don't think you have any evidence of anything ever being free, ever, in the history of forever. Show me a free thing, please. No such thing, silly person.
It is clear that it is impossible, at one moment, for example, the Big Bang, for the future structure and function of the universe to be determined, let alone life and how life will evolve.
Alright, so how life evolves. So she just extended that theory. So she went further than just at the Big Bang. She's now saying that when the first cell replicated, it wasn't determined what the outcome would be. And if I set up exactly the same circumstances and put this cell right there in exactly the same place, she's arguing that somehow it would turn out different. Why? Because these assholes in Brussels don't know what pi is, and they don't realize they can't use pi in their equation, or their equation turns to shit. And they don't know what significant decimal places are. So they have a school and they don't know what significant digits are. Yeah. But that's her science, because why? Because it's religious-y sounding. It gives us back our free will. Yay! So it's science. No. It's crap.
To cut a long story short, we may use our imperfect language and say, nature is created.
Well, why did you say nature is created? Where was the irregularities that you're talking about? How come you didn't say ngukro? You know, how come you didn't say birdie? How come you didn't say some other word? How come you said nature? I think you said it because you know the word. And that's the only reason why you said it. I'm betting determinism says your ass ain't gonna get any smaller. I'm betting.
You must understand that phrase in the proper abstract way, because there isn't an object called nature which does something.
Yeah, she keeps saying stuff like this. She's saying life isn't life, and we know life is life. Nature isn't nature. So physical forces that are the definition of nature, which are forces, aren't forces. And forces, let's say, aren't mechanics. She thinks there's something else going on. There's magic, random, fluffy. And even if there was random, magic, fluffy, how would that make us free? That would make us just broken. That wouldn't make us free. It would make us broken. It would mean that we don't act logically. We don't act by order of conditions. That conditions, preconditions, don't decide future conditions. So it's just adding chaos. How is chaos an advantage? Explain to me how chaos is an advantage. Yeah, that would be the good one. Because if you're going to say there is no determinism, the only thing you're going to have then mixed into the determinism of that I will always say determinism and I'm not going to say kitty. But let's just say, you know, I get through my whole life always saying determinism when I mean determinism and not saying kitty when I mean determinism. You know, the 99.99% of our existence that's going to seem quite ordered and regular, even if that 1% was irregular or outside of some boundary, again, what would the irregularity be except chaos? It would just be pollution. Pollution by anti-logic. Why would you think that's better? So 99% determinism plus 1% dog do. And that's somehow an improvement in your logical brain. Your horse's ass of a brain. Midget horse ass.
By this we mean everything, the new emergent objects that appear, with their emergent properties, one of which is DNA. And the following complexity is the human brain. A quotation about which I will read in a moment will make your conversational partner realize that his or her statement, my consciousness, will be exactly repeated.
Exactly repeat. Again, who says that? Who? Where has anybody said that? You're just a liar. A horrible liar. You really are. An evil liar.
Is nothing but an embarrassment. So, I have to...
No, it's an embarrassment when you lie in front of everybody and just keep doing it and then pretend you have something called credibility or honor or integrity. I mean, you're disgusting. You're such a liar.
Taken this from Erich Fromm's book, The Anatomy of Human Destructiveness, where Fromm, contrary to the title, proves that there is no neurological center in the brain which causes aggression.
No neurological center in the brain which causes aggression. Yeah, well, it's a consequence of hormones. It's a dispositional condition. So it disposes the brain to be, and also emotionally excited. And it is that emotional excitement combined with some paranoia. So paranoia might not be a center in the brain, but I think obviously our emotions like guilt, envy, they're all tied to an elemental part of the neurology, tags words and tags concepts with those emotional taints. So those words trigger the emotional response, the adrenals and the rest of it. So again, I haven't made any argument that there's any such thing. So why is this in the middle of a video where you're pretending to have a conversation with a person who is supposed to be a facsimile of me? Who knows? Do you have any clue? I don't know what she's up to.
That humans have evolved and are characterized by 1. The ever-decreasing determination of behavior by instincts, and 2.
The ever-decreasing determination of behavior by instincts, reflexes. All your brain is a reflex. Everything you understand and know is a reflex. Every word triggers reflex. It's all reflexes, so you don't even understand what a brain is made out of. That's what a neuron is. A neuron is a reflex.
By the growth of the brain, and particularly
the growth of the brain. Again, there's absolutely no proof that the growth of the brain has anything to do with understanding or perception or intelligence. None.
Of the neocortex, which is 3 times as large as that of even the hominid ancestors.
3 times as large, based on skull size. Yeah. So yeah, that's all you do, right? Is you measure how thick a skull is, and you're going to draw inferences. Fine, go ahead and play that game. It's okay with me. But none of that demonstrates that we evolved any of that incrementally, and we can, I think, clearly see the only difference between us and the other simians isn't our emotional character or our aggression or our native drives or our native emotions. That the only difference is vocabulary. They can't learn enough words. That's it. The only limiting factor.
And a truly fantastic number of interneuronal connections, which result in your character and in your consciousness. Here
consciousness. So she thinks consciousness is something only humans are doing. She doesn't think it's something every other mammal is doing for certain, and many other organisms are doing. Well, she's probably, still is a meat eater, right? So, friend of to be seriouses.
is a moment to say that your consciousness is not a little homunculus sitting somewhere in your brain, judging the decisions and thoughts that your brain has, but it is the whole network from the interconnections that the neurons make. From consults R.B. Livingston's Brain Circuitry and Neurology.
Wow. I mean, so again, why is this in this video? I've made more videos on that subject than you have, or anybody else has for that matter, about the fact that there is no person inside of you making decisions.
Where he gives a quotation from Judson Herrick's book, Brains of Rats and Man. Judson Herrick has tried to give an approximate idea of the potentialities of neuronal circuits. A quotation. Every neuron of the cerebral cortex is enmeshed in a tangle of very fine fibers of great complexity, some of which come from very remote parts. It is probably safe to say that the majority of cortical neurons are directly or indirectly connected with every cortical field. This is the anatomical basis of cortical associational processes. The
Whatever. Yeah, bullshit there. Okay, that's all I'll say. Neurons are axioms and all this other, axons and whatever the other thing are, and you want to play with the interior of neurons. I don't think that's where intelligence lies. But go ahead, play your game. You might as well get to like microtubules and pretend they're, magical tubules.
Sections of these associational fibers form an anatomical mechanism which permits, during a train of cortical associations, numbers of different functional combinations of cortical neurons that far surpass any figures ever suggested by the astronomers in measuring the distances of stars.
Yeah, whatever. Again, you can add up every, you could do the circumference of the neurons. You know, some of the neurons are very long. And then you could do the interior circumferences, and you could play all kinds, do the circumference of the nucleus, and do all kinds of bullshit like that, and say you found all kinds of storage space for data. But it would just be bullshit.
Is the capacity for making this sort of combination and recombination of the nervous elements that determines the practical value of the system. If 1 million cortical nerve cells were connected one with another in groups of only 2 neurons each in all possible combinations, the number of different patterns of interneuronic connections thus provided will be expressed by 10 to the power of 2,783,000.
Right, so that's exactly what she's doing. She's counting microtubules, the structure inside of cells that allow them to divide the nucleus, keep the structure of the cell. So she's counting the girders in a building or something and saying something like, I can't think of a proper analogy, but I mean, she's just taking stuff that has nothing to do with, well, you know, saying it has something to do with the traffic on the street. It just doesn't, there's nothing relevant here. The interior biology of the neuron has nothing to do with either our consciousness or the processing capacity of our brains, and you don't need to do this nonsense. 2 neurons equal this preposterous crap. To get to the simple fact that we have plenty of neurons to figure out that it could be a very elaborate computing device. You know, the billions of neurons, billions. And if they each have 20 connections, you can already make a big enough number to say, wow, that's a lot of power. So what is this whole argument for? What is this part of your God delusion? What does this mush mean? You've cured consciousness, you've figured it out, you're going to tell us this is what it is, based on this mush? Oy, pathetic.
On the basis of the known structure of the cortex, the number of intercellular connections that are anatomically present and available for use in a short series of cortical neurons of the visual area simultaneously excited by the retinal image would far exceed the 10 to the power of 2,783,000 already mentioned. And
a horse is a horse, of course, unless, of course, the horse is Mr. Red and such. I mean, come on. Horses are horses, monkeys is monkeys, zebras is zebras, whatever, lions is lions, humans is humans. It's not this complicated, alright? You want to pretend that that makes a difference. It makes a difference whether my fingernail is this long or half is that long, and so that's the whole difference in the human. It's because the fingernail is a little longer, a little shorter. I mean, this little bibble babble means nothing. We all know what, you know, if you're a guy, you know what it is to have nuts in a penis. If you're a woman, you know pretty much what a vagina is. This is not that complicated. So keep pretending it's all mystical and wonderful. You're fucking God because you have very special little brain tubules. Is that it or something? What the fuck are you trying to tell me? I don't know what it is to be a human being? God, this is just so fucking stupid.
The theoretically possible combinations in groups of 2 only. Close the quotation. For comparative purposes, Livingston adds, recall that the number of atoms in the universe is estimated to be about 10 to the power of 66. But the question is that no consciousness is exactly the same as any other consciousness.
And again, that wasn't the argument. The argument was that it was like twins, you know, were born, and they could be very similar in a lot of ways, because they have a same genetic dispositions, and they can, you know, they'll vary, but they'll have a consistency within ranges, and just because of their biology, just because they have a similar biology, and we often have similar life experiences that tend us to be, to draw us to similar conclusions, to similar perceptions, to similar sensibilities, to liking the same kind of conversation or entertainment or food. And we can see that in people. We can see people of like tastes, and we can put them in a category when to describe them. So this is not all that complicated.
Consciousness is unique and will not be repeated, not in the future.
Yeah, whatever. Again, that wasn't the argument. The argument was merely an argument to understand empathetically yourself, to recognize your stake in the future. That even if you don't exist personally, somebody who will be a lot like you is likely to exist. And maybe many people who are very much like you will exist. And they'll live in that world that you're going to create. And just like you would have appreciated if the previous generation took life a little more seriously than they did, they might appreciate you taking it more serious than you're taking it. And that's the purpose of the argument you have perverted and distorted, because you're a nasty, skanky, evil horse's ass.
Not in the past, not at present, because everybody is unique. So I would advise you to...
Yeah, so is every snowflake. But we know what snow is. I mean, it's all pretty much snowy. Yeah, the differences aren't worth a difference. They don't mean anything. It just doesn't.
To tell your conversation partner, if he or she insists that his consciousness will be exactly repeated.
Well, again, who has said that? Who has said that? Alright, no one. So you're just arguing with a straw person. Oh, I see. Well, if your conversational partner asks you, is there anything worse than a big fat horse's ass? Maybe you should say, well, a double horse's ass. Yeah, it's probably worse.
To tell him not to worry, that will not happen. He or she can continue living his life, his or her life, until he or she dies, and not to worry anymore.
Yeah, don't worry. It's only going to be those people living in the future who don't matter. So again, she's just kind of don't worry. So she understands what the argument is. The argument is there's something to worry about. That those people, as much as you don't think, you think yourself so much more superior than them, you're really not. And if you really recognized the truth of the matter, you could recognize that those people in the future are going to do exactly what you're doing now. And whatever vulnerability or poison or stench you put into them, okay, it's going to mean as much as if it happens to you. Their broken leg isn't going to be any different than your broken leg. Wow. I mean, it really is stupid when this is what I have to go on the internet to argue with people about. Suffering sucks, and that your broken leg isn't more important than their broken leg. Fuck. You people are just... I mean, how can I not call this... Well, I don't want it, but it's pathetic.
About somebody else in the future that will feel the same. That will not happen. There will be, again, people who will think in a very different manner, but it will not be the same. The brain that has been built by genes is very complex, and it is a system, it is the integration.
Whatever. Yeah, it's very complex, and yet it seems that all people who get broken legs behave very similarly. Yeah, it's a great consistency. When you stick a pencil in something's eye, the reaction seems very consistent from eye to eye.
Of all the parts of the brain, all the neurons, and different parts of the brain have different functions.
Yes, there's jackasses and assholes and cool people.
That is what our consciousness is. There is not one little homunculus in the brain.
again, liar. Who's arguing there is? Who? Yeah, that's right. Liar.
That takes decision or watches how the brain, or what the brain has decided.
Right, but there are consistent programs from human to human. We have classes of people. We describe them. You're a huckleberry, or whatever that guy's joke was, right? Yeah, you're a redneck. We put them in categories. They're so fucking cliche. We have the word cliche to describe the cliche nature of the human organism's function.
And then judges it. The interconnections, the integration of all the neurons and synapses and so on, that is what our consciousness is. So
this has nothing to do with the argument, right? So she strawmans the argument by making some accusation of exactitude, as if somebody doesn't understand that humans are nuanced, even though they say that very thing, and that they're eccentric, but that the eccentricities do pattern. They fall into categories. What, 100 categories? 1,000 categories? How many really distinguishing factors are there? There really aren't that many, okay? There aren't trillions of important categorical attributes that human beings manifest. You can put them in categories: vegetarian, tree hugger, horse's ass.
I would advise you to tell your conversation partner not to worry about anybody in the future having the same consciousness as he or she does.
Yeah, well, again, that's not, I didn't tell them to worry about the same consciousness. I told them to worry about some kind of similar consciousness, and that if you ruin the soil their future, you're essentially soiling your own, in a sense. I mean, frankly, this all feels so familiar to me, anyway. I mean, it just feels like, yeah, we've gone over this, and over this, and over this human game. Ugh, silly assholes. Yeah. So anyway, let's finish up.
That is not possible. Bye.
Ugh, it is so obnoxious, so arrogant. They have a right to impose optimism, and the pessimist doesn't have any rights at all. They will force it upon him. And they call themselves decent. Disgusting. This chick looks way too young. She's some model chick. Yeah. I was just Googling about, fell upon it. It is a bit of an interesting face. Eyes are crooked though. Anyway. Like I should talk. Anyway. So, oh, that was fun, wasn't it? Jesus Christ. So, till the next time, and such, and so forth.